I am going to get the recording started for this. So today, thank you so much for joining us. This webinar will be recorded and we'll be sending it to all registrants after today's webinar. So if you want to rewatch it or aren't able to stay for the whole thing, we'll definitely be able to access the recording afterwards. Also, for anyone who has any questions during the webinar, please feel free to drop those in the Q&A or the chat feature, and we'll make sure to get to them towards the end after we've discussed some of the curriculum, things like that as well. For those who I maybe haven't gotten a chance to know yet, my name is Tess Jacobsen. I'm the Assistant Director for the Environmental Law Program, and I oversee the MSL and LLM students here at Lewis and Clark Law School. Today, we're going to be talking about our curriculum, and whoops, got ahead of myself. I am joined today by Professor Chris Wold, who is going to be talking a little bit about two of the classes that he teaches in our online program. Professor Wold has been with this school for a few years now and has been teaching in the online program since the inception. So it's been great. He teaches both our international environmental law and our ocean and coastal law in the online program as well. So he will be a great resource if you have questions about the student-faculty relationships and how it works in the online program, how it might be different from in-person program as well. I wanted to talk a little bit before we get into the courses, a little bit about the LLM and MSL here at Lewis and Clark. So our MSL program is our Master's in the Study of Environmental, Natural Resources, and Energy Law. That degree is designed for professionals or recent graduates who are looking for exposure to environmental laws and regulations, how they're structured, and who would benefit from having that knowledge in their work. So we work a lot with scientists, a lot with regulators, with people who are dealing with a lot of the laws and regulations, but who don't necessarily want to be a practicing attorney or need a full law degree for their work. The LLM, or the Masters of Law, that is for students or professionals who have or are about to hold a JD, a Juris Doctorate, or an LLB, the equivalent law degree, if you're an international student. And maybe as a law school student, you didn't have a chance to take environmental classes. Perhaps you are already in the career field, but you're wanting to transition into environmental, natural resources, or energy law. The LLM can really provide you with the exposure to those laws and regulations in order to give you that knowledge to make that transition. So both degrees, you will be with students from both degrees in our online classes. So we have both LLM and MSL students in our online courses, as well as occasionally JD students as well, who get special permission to take our online courses. All of our programs are ABA accredited, so they're very intent. There are intensive courses, but you will get really great knowledge out of it, and you'll get the skills that you need in order to be successful in the environmental law field. A little bit about our approach to online learning. So the online curriculum is most of our classes, pretty much all of them are asynchronous, which means that you can watch the recordings, do the discussion posts, take the quizzes on your own schedule. While there are deadlines throughout the semester, usually on a weekly or every 10 days, you'll have a deadline to complete the homework by, but you can do it anytime during that time period. So we have students who work full time, and so they're doing classes on the evenings or the weekends, doing their readings and watching their lectures. We have students who are taking care of family members or are stay-at-home parents. So maybe they're with their kids in the evenings, so they're doing the program during the day. And so there's a lot of flexibility with the online format, and it's really designed to be as flexible as you need it to be during keeping in mind that you are all very busy professionals and have a lot of different obligations that you need. So the online structure was really designed to meet you where you're at, to be able to give you the knowledge to make this career transition or to use it to bolster your current career as well. During the program, you'll have access to technical support 24/7 through our online learning platform, Canvas. So even though myself or your professors aren't available 24/7, you do have access to help if you have questions or issues accessing any of the materials in the Canvas learning platform. There's a lot of different interactive learning elements that we try to incorporate in order to make the materials as engaging as possible. And we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later as well. So now to get into some of the good stuff that we'll be offering. So some of the courses that we offer, I'm going to go by each semester. So here at Lewis and Clark, we do run in a semester system, which means our fall semester usually begins in mid to end August, and then it continues through mid-December. And then our spring semester starts in early January and goes until middle of April to the beginning of May, depending on when your final exams are. The online program follows the same academic calendar as our in-person program as well. So there's, the classes and final exam period, all of that is going to be the same for whether you're taking classes online or if you're taking classes here on our campus in Portland, Oregon. And then we do also offer a summer program as well. So our summer program usually runs from the end of May, usually the Tuesday after Memorial Day, until early August. So you do have the option to take courses year round if you want to. We have online courses that are available during the summer as well, and also some really fun Zoom courses that we offer during the summer that are like 2-week intensive courses. And I'll get a little bit more into them later as well. So a little bit about our fall 2026 courses, and I will let Professor Chris Wold talk in a couple slides about his specific courses that he's offering this fall. So environmental law, that is our core survey environmental class that we offer here at Lewis and Clark. It's required for all students, LLM, MSL, International, everybody has to take that class. And that class really provides the overview of core environmental law statutes in the United States, kind of the foundational statutes that you'll encounter. So you're going to cover the NEPA, which is the National Environmental Policy Act. You'll cover the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, and also some that deal with hazardous waste as well. But that is the core class. It's offered every single fall. It's taught by Professor Chris Johnston, or sorry, Professor Craig Johnston, who also teaches the in-person portion of that class. And it's a really great foundational class to kind of introduce you to the environmental laws in the US. International environmental law and ocean and coastal, again, we'll talk a little bit more about those. Professor Wold will be able to provide some more details on those classes in a little bit. Land use planning is one of our new classes this fall. We've had it in our in-person program for a few years, but we are now offering it in our online program as well. And so that will cover things that deal with private land use in the public domain. So you're going to be talking about eminent domain. You're going to be covering some of the zoning issues that you might come across as well. So a lot of students have really been excited about this class and excited that we're going to be offering it online now as well. Emerging topics in environmental law, that is a 1 credit course that's required for LLM students. So they're required to take two credits of it or 2 semesters. MSL students have the option of taking this course. Most of them end up taking it, I would say, at some point in their time during the program. It's a really exciting course because it deals with all hot new topics happening in environmental law, which has been a lot of. It's really exciting because it takes things that are happening currently. So it's very new, up and coming, deals with both US, international, a little bit of everything, recent changes, things like that as well. So it's new every single semester. Different lecturers come in, guest lecturers as well. And the students write a blog post on a topic that they're interested in for that class too. So it's a really exciting time to explore an area that you might be interested in too, that maybe we don't offer a class on currently. And then the Introduction to U.S. Environmental Legal Studies is a course that I teach, and that's designed for our MSL students and our international LLMs who maybe don't have a lot of familiarity with the common law system or U.S. law schools. So we cover a little bit about the structure of the common law system, the structure of the U.S. government, touch on environmental statutes and administrative law. And then we also you get a chance to see what a law school exam typically looks like. We cover a little bit about legal research and writing as well. So you get a chance to really get an introduction into a U.S. legal classroom and what you might encounter in it. You'll learn what a outline is, how to brief a case, things like that in that course. And that course usually happens prior to the start of your other classes, in order to set you up for success when you begin your other fall courses. And again, if you have any questions as we're getting in there, feel free to drop them in the Q&A or in the chat. So our spring 2027 courses, we're offering three credit courses. So most of our courses are 3 credits. It's 26 credits in order to complete the degree for most of the students. And then, the really you're going to be taking approximately, you know, 9-ish classes during your time in the program. Some of the courses, like emerging topics in the intro course, are 1 credit or 2 credits, or some of the summer courses. So water law, that is a course that we offer typically every spring. And that course really deals with traditional water rights in the US. So you're going to be dealing usually with public, private rights. It covers the entire US. There is a little bit more of a Western focus to it, just because that's where a lot of the water rights law comes from. But it does cover the entire US as well. Wildlife law and natural resources law and science is taught by Professor Dan Rolfe, who's a longtime professor here at Lewis and Clark as well. Wildlife law is going to introduce you to many of the laws and regulations that deal with wildlife, biodiversity, habitats. A huge focus of that course, just because it's a huge focus on wildlife law in general, is the Endangered Species Act, but you also cover many other different laws and regulations as well. And I should mention, I will drop a link here in the chat because I know I'm going through these kind of fast. But all of these courses have descriptions on our website. So you are able to, if you want more details on what each course goes into, you're able to visit this link and get some more information about each course as well. Natural Resources Law and Science, that's a really fun course that talks about the natural resources law, biodiversity, and how science interacts with the law as well. So it's kind of a unique course, and actually one that is unique to the online program that we don't currently offer in person either. And then again, we'll offer emerging topics in the intro course as well. Those are both offered every fall and spring semester. Typically, each semester, we try to offer or we're guaranteed that you get at least 2 3-credit course options. Usually, as you can see from our courses this year, you have more than 2 options in the 3-credit courses. Often we have 3 or 4 courses for that are 3 credits running every semester. And we're always adding new courses as well, like land use planning. Last year we added an environmental impacts assessment course that we're going to be offering every other year. So new courses are being added based on interests that students like, changes in the laws, changes in what we're seeing students need knowledge of. So it's something that we're constantly adding to, analyzing, and moving around as well. Some of the other additional courses that we offer, administrative law is currently offered every summer. So it's the one course, it is required for MSL and LLM students. For US students, it's not required for international students, though it's strongly encouraged because it is understanding the administrative state is a really big foundation for a lot of environmental laws here in the US. So that's a really key course that we encourage all students to take. It's offered currently it's only offered in the summer, but it is an option to take it in the summer so that you can go year round with the courses as well. And then some of the other courses that we offer, environmental impacts assessment, I mentioned that one, that was a new one that was added last year. Environmental justice is a very big topic right now that we're seeing a lot of movement in. So that is a course that's always very popular. And then hazardous waste law is also one that we see a lot of popularity in because you're going to be dealing with things like the Superfund, RCRA, and other environmental regulations around dealing with hazardous waste laws. Again, new courses are being added regularly. And now that I have talked for, sorry, not quite. There's one more slide, and then I will turn it over to Professor Wold. So some of the other things that I really like to highlight about our MSL and LLM programs that not every program I think offers is the experiential learning opportunities. I think these are really great opportunities for our students, and most of our students will take advantage of them at some point in their program. Um, the big one is externships, also called internships. Externships is just the law school term for an internship, essentially. But that's going to be, you can receive academic credit for a work that you do with an environmental focus outside, with an outside organization. This can be with a nonprofit, with the government, with a local organization. Depending on if you're an MSL or an LLM, there's certain stipulations around what you can do or who you have to be overseen by. I'm always happy to meet with students, and I usually do students who are interested in externships. We have a large database of externships that previous students have done, and that's usually where students start their research with externships. Well, so at the law school, we'll help you with the externship process and we'll offer suggestions. It is ultimately up to the student to find a placement, but we do offer you as much help as we can and offer you ideas and suggestions on where to find them. That's both through myself and our assistant dean, also through career services. And then I know our faculty have been a great resource to many students too with finding externship placements during their time in the program. And those can be based on the number of hours you work. You can have up to 6 credits of an externship or an experiential learning experience that will count towards the degree. Another area that a lot of students have taken advantage of is an independent research paper. And this is really, usually it's 1 or 2 credits. There is a 3 credit option, but most students do 1 or 2 credits because of the intensity of it. And an independent research paper is going to be on a topic of your choice, something that you're interested in, maybe something that we don't offer a class on. And it's a chance to work one-on-one with a faculty member that we help set up, and we help find you somebody to oversee the paper. And then you will do the research, write an intensive research paper. Usually it's going to be about 20 to 40 pages, so it's a pretty intense undertaking. But it's a really great chance to explore an area of law that you're interested in or a new area of law that's evolving, and also to really fine tune and hone in on your writing and research skills for the legal paper as well. Many of our students have worked on an independent research paper, and it's been a quality product that has been able to go on and be published in a law review or in an external uh, program as well. Right, now I think I'm on the right slide. We're going to take a closer look at a couple of Professor Wold's classes. And so I will turn it over to him to talk a little bit about his courses and what you might expect in them this fall.
Thanks, Tess, and welcome everyone. The first thing I want to say is with all of these courses, they have the same rigor as if you are taking the same course in person. The textbook is the same. The teaching is obviously on video, but the lectures are more or less the same. Obviously, we have to tailor them because we don't have the give and take of classroom discussion. But I just want to impress upon you that the content is the same. You're not getting some diminished version of the course simply because it's an online course. In ocean and coastal law, for me, this is always a fascinating class because it's a mix of international law, federal statutory law, but also state law, even getting down to municipal law and then some common law. So you get everything. It very much is a domestic law course where you see at the bottom of this slide a reference to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. I cover that much more in depth in the International Environmental Law course that is on the next slide. But for this course, it's really just to, we introduce it simply to get some sense of how ocean management is designed at the international level and how that juxtaposes with the US legal system. You see the beginning of the class, we just have some titles like conflicts between public and private uses of the coastal zone. this is a fascinating area, right? So first of all, who owns the beach, right? Who owns the area between low tide and high tide, right? And what are the responsibilities of a relevant government or a private landowner to to protect those areas and protect those areas for the public, right? This is what fascinating. It can be a little bit challenging because the laws of every state differ, right? And they sometimes differ in pretty fundamental ways. It's a good example of needing to really know the law where you practice, but also be able to know what's happening elsewhere in case legal principles from other jurisdictions might be able to help you in your own case. This area of law is becoming far more prominent and subject to litigation as climate change erodes beaches. We used to have a bit more balance between losing a bit of beach due to erosion, but gaining a bit of beach due to accretion of sand that has been eroded from someplace else. Now, in most places, it's pretty much only erosion, uh, and and that's causing many private landowners to then want to put hard structures on the beach, things we call riprap or groins to protect their beach, right? But from an environmental perspective, what does that do to other people's beaches? And in terms of law, what do different jurisdictions allow? Here in Oregon, the use of hard structures is prohibited unless you have developed your land in some way prior to 1977. Other jurisdictions allow the use of these hard structures far more liberally than Oregon and other states. Right? So this is just, for me anyway, a fascinating area of law. And then also with the erosion of beaches, what is that doing uh, to beach access for the public, right? And if private landowners own the beach, what rights do the public have to use the beach? We find in many jurisdictions that different legal principles are being used to grant the public access to beaches. Here in Oregon, our Oregon Supreme Court has said by virtue of the doctrine of custom, the public has ancient rights to use all sandy beaches, essentially. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but then in other places like New Jersey, a different legal principle, the public trust doctrine, has been used to grant the public access to dry beaches, even those that are publicly owned, right? Other jurisdictions are a bit more uh, limiting in public access, using more traditional property concepts such as prescriptive easements, where the public has to show that, among other things, that they have been using this beach for some period of time. So after this initial look at mostly state and local law, we then finally turn to some federal statutory law. We have a law known as the Coastal Zone Management Act. The Coastal Zone Management Act, the CZMA, is a really fascinating statute because although a federal statute, its intent is to give authority to the states to manage the coastal zone. But states are not required to do so, right? And so Congress dangles the carrot of money in order to convince states to prepare a coastal zone management program. And then within that coastal zone management program, the states often, but not always, right? So this is again one of the fun aspects of a class like this, devolves authority to municipalities to manage the beach, right? Uh, we then turn to specific federal statutes protecting species. whether marine mammals, so we'll take a look at the Marine Mammal Protection Act and the Endangered Species Act, but from obviously from a marine context, while the Endangered Species Act and the Marine Mammal Protection Act are also covered in Professor Rolf's wildlife law course. In this particular course, we focus on unique aspects of management of species in the marine environment. For example, what does it mean to protect both the survival of the species and the species habitat in the marine environment, as opposed to doing so in the terrestrial environment, where protection of individual species is a little bit more separated from protection of a terrestrial species habitat. In the marine environment, protecting the survival of the species is intimately linked to the same ocean space where we're going to find the prey species. And so courts have wrestled with how to take into account both of these requirements of the Endangered Species Act when dealing with marine species. And then we take a look at how we go about with oil and gas development in what we call the outer continental shelf, this area extending from 3 miles off the shore, right? And that 3 miles is an area managed by the states. So from 3 miles out to 200 miles is an area managed by the federal government. And we have a special statute or statutes that allow the Department of Interior to lease those lands, not only for oil and gas development, but for wind energy as well. In recent years, now probably closer to about the last 20 years, with the change in administrations, we've had significant changes in how those lands are being managed, with Presidents Biden and Obama being more aggressive in wind energy development and less willing to allow oil and gas development, with President Trump being quite antagonistic towards wind energy development offshore and much more willing to allow oil and gas development. So that section is quite that unit of this class is quite a lively one. I think that's it for this course, Tess. Then with international environmental law, this course focuses solely on international law. We don't look at any domestic law, even though domestic law is how we're going to in all states, in all nation states, that is, implement international law. So treaties like the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, which is a treaty, as the name of the treaty suggests, regulates international trade in endangered species. We implement that through our Endangered Species Act. The International Convention for the Regulation of Whaling has its own statute, but it's also partly implemented through the Marine Mammal Protection Act as well. So there's very much a core part of this course looking at specific international treaties that protect wildlife, but also protect the climate and protect us from continued ozone depletion. So it's not a international wildlife law course. It very much is a course looking at the totality of international environmental law. The treaties that I've chosen to teach are those that cover really the most, I don't want to say the most important issues affecting the planet, although that's partly it, right? We're going to talk about climate change and the Paris Agreement on climate change, and we're going to talk about the Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer, our most successful international environmental treaty, and one that has saved us from untold numbers of cancers and other human and wildlife impacts, adverse impacts. But I have also chosen them because we use different strategies in those different treaties to protect humans from adverse impacts being caused by certain activities, or otherwise to solve the problem caused by particular human activities. In the case of the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, it's all about the use of trade tools, prohibiting trade in species that are threatened with extinction, in part due to trade. But in the Whaling Convention, now we're regulating the actual activity of killing whales in the marine environment. Right? So how is it that the things we'll study are relate to how do we get to those particular strategies and have those strategies been successful? The first part of the course, though, which you see with the first bulleted item, the fundamental underpinnings of environmental and international law, looks at doesn't look at treaties themselves, but many of the concepts that we find embodied in treaties. They are also standalone principles that have been used by domestic courts throughout the world to resolve environmental disputes. In many circumstances, the jurisdictions don't have robust environmental law, and we see courts stepping in to use international law principles, maybe not the international treaties themselves, but the principles to, for example, stop a highway from going through a forest that would significantly adversely affect the giant burrowing toad if we're in Australia, or require more in-depth discussion of the potential impacts from high voltage power lines in Pakistan using this concept we call the precautionary principle. Right? So here, even though we're focused solely on international environmental law, we're looking at different components of our international legal system, the underlying principles, but then also the treaties themselves. Tess, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Wold. That's always I took these classes in law school, and hearing the professors talk about them, I just want to take them again because they sound so interesting, and I know things have definitely changed since I was a student too. Um, so just a little touch point. I think Professor Wool touched on this a little bit. I touched on this a little bit. You know, the online learning experience, we really try to make it as engaging as possible. So the recorded lectures are super high quality. We get a professional videographer who does the work with the professors, and there's interactive elements. You'll see slides and pictures and things like that as well. So it's not just you watching the professor talk for 45 minutes. There's a lot of different components that go into that. A big part of the classes too is the class discussions posts. That's really meant to help facilitate the classroom discussion that would naturally happen in an in-person classroom. But, you know, that is something that we need to engage with in the online learning format. So it's usually an answer or opinion on something that you watched in the lecture videos or in the reading materials, and you'll respond to that, maybe respond to other classmates. It's great because I think it's really great because in an in-person classroom, you maybe get one or two opinions, but in the online classroom, you get 30 opinions about, from students who have different viewpoints, different background experiences, different knowledge, and they bring all of that into the classroom, which is really fun and exciting. Professors also host Zoom office hours as well. Those usually aren't required, but you know, sometimes it's exam reviews or sometimes it's just if you have any questions during the course, things like that, they'll maybe respond to discussion posts or issues that they see that came up as well. So we really do try to make the online learning experience as engaging as possible. Outside of the classroom, we host a lot of like little social hours. Some of it is via Zoom. We also host several events here on campus. You're always welcome to attend those, but we also host live stream of those events as well. So that's a really fun way to get engaged with the community too. We have kickoff dinners. So we really do try to make you feel as much a part of the Lewis and Clark community as you are. And then I'm going to talk briefly before we get into the Q&A. So if you have, again, think of any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or the Q&A function, and we'll get to those in just a minute. So briefly talking about some of the requirements for the program. So US, LLM, and all MSL students are required to complete 26 credit hours. Again, that's roughly about 9 courses that you'll be taking during your time. The required courses for US students is administrative law, environmental law, and 2 semesters of emerging topics or the intro course if you're an MSL student. For international LLM students, you do have to complete 28 credit hours, and that's because one of the required courses is that 2 credit intro course in addition to environmental and emerging topics as well. So you just have those 2 extra credits. At least 18 of the 26 credits do have to be environmental law courses. We do offer some online courses, or if you attend in person, you are able to join other courses that we offer here on campus. Not all of them are open, though most of them are open to our MSL and LLM students on a space available first come basis. So we have an animal law program. Some of our students will take 1 or 2 classes in that program. Sometimes it's something like contract drafting or something as well that they would find beneficial. So you do have the option to take a couple credits outside of the environmental law curriculum as well if you want to. Always happy to talk with students if you have any questions about that too. When we're looking at our applications, so some of the requirements for our LLM degree, which is our Master's of Law, you must be a graduate of an accredited US or international law school. This would be you would have to hold a JD degree if you're in the US, or something like an LLB is the normal degree that we see for the international students. But essentially a degree that would allow you to sit for the bar exam or to practice law in the country where you have the degree from. Master's in the study of law students. There's a lot of acronyms in environmental law, so we embrace that here. So the MSL students, those students just need to hold a bachelor's degree. So you don't need any other master's degree. You don't need a JD or an LLB or anything like that. As long as you are a graduate of an accredited US or international college or university. We don't look for a specific degree. You don't need like a bachelor's in political science or anything like that. We get people from all different backgrounds for both degrees. But with the MSL degree specifically, there is no requirement for a specific bachelor's degree. Some of the other things that we look for are an excellent academic record. This will be reflected in your JD, LLB, or bachelor's transcripts, strong research, analytical, and writing skills. This will be reflected in your personal statement, in your writing sample if you submit one of those, things like that. And then we want a genuine interest. To me, this is the most important part, is having that genuine interest in environmental, natural resources, or energy law. You'll convey this usually through your personal statement, sometimes through your resume or other history as well. But this program is really focused on environmental, natural resources, and energy law. So the program is really key that you have an interest in that area and that you would find it beneficial for your future career as well. I will note that this degree for the international students who are LLM students, the degree doesn't prepare you to sit for the bar exam. So just that's something I always like to caution is that if you do plan to sit for something like the New York or the Texas bar or the California bar, this degree doesn't prepare you to do that, but it will prepare you for, practicing environmental law, whether you choose to do that in the US or in your home country as well. Actual bar membership is not required for LLMs. So you can be a recent graduate, you can be a working professional, you don't need to be barred. And then we don't have any standardized testing that's required for either application. So no GRE or LSAT is required to apply to the programs. And if you're confused on if you would fall under the LLM or MSL program, again, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to provide clarification on that and make sure that it's the right fit for you as well. The application components, we have an online application form for either the MSL or the LLM program. And then you'll also submit your statement of interest. That's going to be where you show off your writing skills and your genuine interest in environmental law, how you think it might benefit you to have this degree in your career or how you plan to use the degree. So that's a really good, important part of your application. It's, one of the few places in the application where we get to hear from you, the student, versus reviewing your transcripts or hearing from your recommenders, things like that. So it's a really great opportunity to show off your skills. We'll also look for a resume. This can be a typical business resume, something that shows off your academic work history, your volunteer history, things like that as well. And then we'll also look for your unofficial transcripts. So this would either be your JD or LLB or your bachelor's degree transcripts. For the purposes of applying to the program, unofficial transcripts are totally fine. We'll ask for official transcripts once you matriculate as a student and officially start the program. In addition, we're looking for 2 to 3 letters of recommendation. This is going to be from hopefully professional letters of recommendation. We really look for people who can speak to your ability to be successful in a graduate level program. So maybe people who have worked with you, supervisors, it could be volunteer supervisors, colleagues, people who have maybe seen your writing or your research skills or your analytical thinking skills. So those are always really great to see in letters of recommendation. Prior academic professors, if you are a recent graduate or still have really good connections with anybody from your law school or from your undergrad, always really great to see two academic letters of reference as well. So those are really great places to start if you're thinking about who to ask. MSL applicants also must submit a writing sample. So that can be 5 to 7 pages. Doesn't have to be environmental in nature. It can be if you want. Most students end up submitting something that maybe they wrote for work as long as it's redacted and not confidential, or something that they wrote during their time in undergrad. A research paper or something like that is great. Again, this is just something that can show off your writing skills and make sure that you're at the level of writing that this program requires. And then for international students, you'll have to have proof of English proficiency. This is usually the IELTS or the TOEFL score. There's other forms as well. So, for example, if your um, LLB was um, entirely taught in English, and English is an official language of the country, or your institution is a US accredited institution abroad, that's usually sufficient as well. Again, any specific questions, I'm always happy to set up a meeting with you and talk about it and see what we can do as well. And I think that was, oh no, one more slide. I'm very confused on my slides apparently today. So our fall application deadline is July 15th, so coming up next Wednesday. So there's still time to apply for fall start. We typically get decisions out usually within 2 to 3 weeks. When we're this close to the deadline, we usually try to get them out a little bit sooner, just to make sure that you have enough time before classes start. However, we do accept applications on a rolling basis, and we have start times 3 times a year. So if fall 2026 seems a little bit too rushed, we do offer a spring start, which would be January. That's priority deadline is October 1st, and then you would start classes January 13th. All our fall classes start August 17th with the introduction course. If you are a US LLM student, you wouldn't start classes until August 31st because you wouldn't have to take the intro course. And then for those who are thinking about financial aid, I encourage you to submit your FAFSA as soon as possible, even if you haven't officially been admitted to the program or not, or even if you are just thinking about applying. Those decisions can sometimes take a while to get sent out. So once we admit you, it usually takes at least 2 weeks to receive a financial aid offer from us. So just, get your FAFSA submitted, make sure you put in our school code, and then once you're admitted, it'll get flagged for our financial aid office and you'll receive the offer. Again, we offer starts year round. So we'll have starts in um, January, May, and August, and the applications with the rolling basis, you can apply for a future semester. So you can apply for spring 2027 now, or even summer 2027 if you want to. And then we'll consider those and get those decisions out as long as you apply before the deadline for each semester. And again, always happy to meet one-on-one. I do a lot of one-on-one counseling throughout the application process, answer any questions about the program, help make sure if it's the right fit for you or not. I, really and love talking with the students. I love being able to help guide them and, talk about the program and make sure that it'd be a good fit for you. So with that, I think I'm officially on the final slide for questions now. So again, feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat. We had a couple come in that I typed out an answer to, but for the sake of people watching the recording, I'm going to ask them live as well, so that we can get the answers. And then maybe Professor Wold, you can answer some of the questions too. So I think this might be a good one for you. We had a student ask if taking environmental law, the survey course, before other classes that are more specific, such as ocean and coastal, if you think that that is beneficial or does it really matter which order you take them in?
I, maybe there's a slight advantage, but certainly for my class, no, right? I'm going to teach you what you need to know. So yes, in environmental law, you will have an in-depth section on the National Environmental Policy Act, the statute that requires the preparation of an environmental impact statement prior to federal projects that may significantly affect the quality of the human environment. We talk about that in ocean and coastal law, but I'm going to give you the relevant law that you need to know. My guess is that in all of the other courses, that is also true. Right? We're not going to assume you have the knowledge to take particular courses. Uh, when that is going to be an assumption, then the course will specifically state there's a prerequisite. I don't think any of our courses have prerequisites, and I see Tess nodding no to indicate that what I just said is in fact true.
Yes, yes, I completely agree with you. Yeah, there's none of the online courses right now that require prerequisite courses. And then um, someone did ask if Ocean and Coastal will be offered in fall 2027. It's typically an every other year course, so I don't think it'll be offered next year. But hopefully we'll be offering it again in the future. And and this kind of goes to the thing that you mentioned where you prepare students and you give them what they need to be successful in the class. Somebody asked if the curriculum is intended for current lawyers or law students, or if for others who would find it helpful in their career paths moving forward. And that's really where the MSL program fits in. But do you have anything you'd like to maybe add to that about like your experience working with like MSL students versus LLM or other students and their success in the classroom?
Uh, maybe I won't answer this in the way you characterize it, but I've seen all kinds of students have success in the classroom, my classes anyway. Uh, uh, but I think this would be true for all of the courses, whether you're an MSL student or an LLM student or a foreign MSL or a foreign LLM, right? You're going to get what you need in the classroom. And then speaking directly to potential MSL students, right? There's so many jobs out there where having some knowledge of a particular area of environmental law would be helpful, right? Whether you're a journalist or an environmental uh, consultant on scientific related issues, having some understanding of the relevant law is going to help you succeed in that kind of job.
Yeah, completely agree as well. And so we had another question come in that takes, which we haven't covered yet, talks about how long it takes to typically complete the MSL program, which is usually the same for MSL or LLM, so I'll answer it at the same time. Most of our online students take about 2 years to complete the program, or 24 months. It's the equivalent of about 4 semesters worth of work. Again, because of the flexibility of the program, some students complete it faster and complete it in as little as 18 months. Some students take a little bit longer. So we've had students, for example, who work for a legislature. So they take off the spring semester when the legislature is in session and they're really busy at work and can't really have the time to fit in classes. But we'll take classes in the summer and the fall in order to keep up with the program. We have some students who take one course at a time and they're doing it, for a few years, but they're taking one course every single semester and just completing it at their own pace because that's what they're able to do with their work. A good kind of like rule of thumb that I like to state, especially for MSL students, LLM students, if you've been in law school, you might have a slightly better idea of roughly how long it takes you to complete a law school class. Um, but I usually recommend that for every credit you're taking, you're planning on spending about 3 to 4 hours doing the coursework. So for if you're taking a 3 credit course, you're probably going to be spending 9 to 12 hours each week, listening to lectures, doing the class readings, preparing outlines, briefing cases, things like that. Again, it varies a lot per student. That is just what I've heard from students is a good estimate for how long it might take you in each class. It sometimes varies during the time of year as well. Um, but yeah, so there's a lot of flexibility with when you complete the program, how many credits you take. It's a pay per credit program, so that means you're only ever paying for the number of credits that you're taking each semester. So you can take as few as 3 credits or even just emerging topics. If you want to take a 1 credit course, that's totally all right as well. You have technically up to 5 years to complete the curriculum in order to meet the degree requirements. And then we had another person who asked about the intro course and whether we touch on state law or just federal law. And with the intro course, we pretty much just cover the federal law, or we do just cover the federal law. It's very similar to state law structure, honestly, because a lot of the state law is structured similarly to federal law. But because most of our classes approach things from a federal viewpoint, because we have some classes might touch on, maybe Oregon or California or give specific state examples, but the overarching theme of our curriculum is going to be US federal law. So that's really what we cover in the intro course, and that's what I introduce you to and make sure that you have an understanding of is the structure of the US federal law system. The no frame to finish. So someone asked about whether the no time frame holds true for all of our MSL programs. So we have the 2 programs. So we have environmental law and animal law. I can't speak specifically to animal law because they do have some different stipulations than we do, but I know that they are also a pay per credit system and they have the flexibility of the program. So I imagine that they also, the only cap on that is um, the timeline that is stipulated by our accreditation, which is 5 years to complete the program. Though I don't know for sure, so double check with them. Um, and I think that was all the questions that we had come in. And I think we covered everything that I had to cover as well. Do you have anything to close off with, Professor Wold? Is there any bit of advice for future students?
I don't know if it's advice, but I'll just give my personal experience. I was a reluctant contributor to the online program because the what we were hearing or what I was reading anyway was that learning outcomes were not very good for online learning. But my colleagues who were the guinea pigs teaching the initial classes said, no, this is way different from early online classes taught elsewhere. Not only do we have much more engaging videos, and I credit the companies that we've worked with for their post-production, but also the way the courses are designed with quizzes, what we call discussion board questions. It becomes it is far more engaging than I ever imagined. And I have to say, the last couple of years, the overall performance of my online students has exceeded that of my in-person classes. So I'm no longer a skeptic. I'm full in, and I think you'll have a very positive experience if you join us at Lewis and Clark.
Thank you. That's wonderful. So thank you all so much for joining us. Again, this recording will be sent out within a few days. But in the meantime, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to us. So thank you all, and I hope you have a wonderful day.